Hello, I'm happy you're checking out the show. This is a unique session today. Arik Levy is interviewing me on this session. So Arik Levy is the host of the Firearms Nation Podcast. He's also a law enforcement officer, and he also has a Firearms Nation YouTube channel. So on YouTube, Firearms Nation. Anyway, let's get to it. And you can still hear me?
Oh, yeah, I hear you fine.
And you can still hear the huge crowd cheering?
Yes, because I just walked into the room.
All right. So, yes. So we are recording like with two people. We're literally recording like a million tracks. I think on my side, on my MixPre, I'm recording 7 tracks. On my audio hijack, I'm recording 3. And on Squadcast, we're recording 2. And what do you got going on locally?
So my MixPre is doing 7. And I also have Audition doing 1.
All right, so how many is that? All right, we got to add that up.
That's 15? I think, no, more than 15. It was 18? Crazy.
So we're just going to hang out and have some fun, right?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this all day. I want to do the show like you, though. All right? I've been thinking about this all day. I've been listening to your shows all day.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about your background. I don't think it's really been discussed. I know you allude to the fact that, you do Dun & Bradstreet and you do some other podcasts for people. You never really tell a little bit about you other than you're into some meditation and long walks on the beach and stuff like that. But just know a little bit more about you because you know what? There are a lot of people who follow you who are interested in what you're doing. And so get some background info on you. Talk about your signal chain and how it's evolved, right? Because I remember how it was, and then like a year and a half later, now it's completely different. I mean, completely different, which is very exciting. And I want people to know why. I want to know why. It's part of the impetus of me doing this. And then the last thing I want to do is I want to talk about podcast engineering school. And I know you got a session coming up, so that's kind of like a perfect little segue into it. But I want to talk about, what is it? You've had several sessions. How did they turn out? What did you see that worked? What didn't work? What could people look forward to? And then the last thing I want to do is just like some general tips and techniques from Chris Curran for better podcasting.
Yeah, oh yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, oh yeah.
All right, so wait, are you going to
Do the intro?
you're going to do everything?
Sure.
You're going to be like, "Hey, welcome to the podcast engineer."
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, this is so cool. All right, it's time.
Yeah.
Yeah!
Uh-huh.
Oh my!
And welcome back to the Podcast Engineering Show.
Yes.
And you are expecting to hear the lovely voice of Chris Curran. But today, something different has happened. I have come to his house. I have held him hostage. Barry is ready to revolt. And we are now taking over this show. This is Arik Levy from the Firearms Nation Podcast. I've been on Chris's show several times, and he just got me so upset that he wasn't using the Rode Broadcaster.
Oh, no.
So Barry and I got together and said, you know what, we're gonna have to take over the show and get it done right.
I forgot about that.
Isn't that right, Barry?
Oh, forget it.
That's right. So yes, today is something different. Today we are taking over the show so we can learn a little bit more about the person who puts in all this time and all this energy to bring out a really fantastic show that has taught so many people about how to put on a successful podcast. And listen, I started this venture 2 years ago. I didn't know anything about sound levels and waveforms and microphones, but I had an interest. And I was doing a podcast, and I just, like many of you out there, you don't have the money to pay somebody to do it. So you want to do it yourself, and you don't want it to suck. So I did a search, and I found the Podcast Engineering Show, and this guy was just, he had such positive energy. He seemed like such a nice guy, and he had great guests on. And I thought, wow. And so I listened to that material, and 2 years later, I feel pretty confident that I'm editing my shows. I understand the different microphones and plugins and DAWs, and I can hold my own in a conversation. So I reached out to Chris and said, listen, a lot of people follow you, but not a lot of people know about you. And I'm sure people want to know, your history, what your thoughts are on stuff. And most importantly,
who I voted for in the last election?
No, we're not. No politics. But, you went to the dark side. You went Mac.
Oh.
And you've basically threw out everything that you've done in the past 2 years since you started the show, and you're doing something completely different. And I thought that's going to be something that people want to know about. And what better way to do it than to be interviewed on your own show?
Yeah, and good timing, because literally just for the past 5 business days, basically, I've actually been using my new computer for full production. So I finally made the jump. So I'm actually ready to talk about it finally. So, and by the way, I want to apologize to Ralph M. Rivera, because Arik, he's going to kick himself that he didn't think of doing what you're doing.
Sorry, Ralph.
I might lose a friend over this. Barry, do you think I'll lose a friend over this?
Nah, it ain't gonna happen.
Oh, good.
No, Ralph's a good guy. I think, what I've learned by being in the podcast community, and even though I haven't made it to any of the, podcast movements or Podfest, which I'm definitely got to hit Podfest because it's in my neck of the woods. But online, the people who are involved in podcasts and podcast production are some of the nicest people I've ever met.
Yeah.
Really willing to help and share information. No one's ultra competitive and saying, and leading you the wrong direction. No, everyone's been, in fact, people, help me with mics and whatnot. Let me borrow something. And that's something else that you do too. You set up that booth, and we'll talk about that.
Cool.
So, settle in. This is something different. And right now, let's just get into it. Let's go, right into it. Let's do the speed round. So, you've changed everything in your setup from start to finish. What's your signal chain?
Yeah. And by the way, Arik, you're doing a great job. And just for people, if this is the first session you're listening to, besides calling it an episode every now and then and saying, no, you got to go back and listen to other sessions, because Arik's doing a great job. So, all right, speed round. All right, well, right now, I'm talking into my RE20. And
wait, I got to write this down.
RE20, which is going into my channel strip, which is a Neve Portico II, which is awesome. And it's coming out of the Neve Portico II, going into my audio interface / recorder, which is the new Sound Devices MixPre-6. And so, yes, I'm recording on the Sound Devices unit itself, and I'm also bringing it into my computer via the MixPre-6. In the computer, I am using Audio Hijack to record. That's my main local recorder. And I'm also using Loopback, which is another Audio Hijack program. And that's to route audio within the Mac. It's Mac only, routes audio anywhere. From anywhere, you can make virtual instruments. It's crazy. And so that's how I'm recording. And when I'm recording sessions, that's all I'm doing is recording them. And so we're also connected on this session using Squadcast. I think this is the first time I've ever recorded a podcast engineering show with Squadcast, and it's a new platform similar to Zencastr and Ringr and everything, except Squadcast has little video cams, so you can see each other. It doesn't record the video, which is fine. Then once I get everything recorded, then I go into mix mode. Well, first I usually clean up all the tracks, and I use RX6, iZotope RX6 Advanced, to clean up all the tracks, to do any dehum and noise reduction, and to delete. Usually I delete frequencies below about 30 hertz and just clean everything up. So I clean everything up, and then I bring it into Reaper, which is my DAW. And believe it or not, on the iMac Pro, the only plugins I have in Reaper are the new Sheps Omni Channel from Waves, and also the SSL G Channel from Waves. And I may have a couple other Waves. I can't remember, but those are the only two I use now. And because on my old machine, I still have all my favorite Waves plugins and other plugins, and I'm sort of like haven't migrated them all over yet because I kind of want to leave my old machine intact because when I go on the road, if I ever need to go anywhere, I could bring my old machine and still actually produce episodes. So then I edit. I mix it in Reaper. I edit it right now. I'm trying to find a stereo editor for Mac that has adjustable playback speed, and I'm having trouble finding it. I know Audition does, and I know Audacity does, but I don't really want to use Audacity, and I don't really want to buy Audition. So right now, I'm actually using TwistedWave. I'm on the trial version of TwistedWave. It's a little stereo editor. Really nice. I actually love it. It's just clean. It's simple. It's fast. Very responsive. And I love it, except you can't vary the speed. And a lot of times when I'm editing, I want to crank up the speed to 1.5 times or 1.7 times so I can get through the editing quicker. And then I master it in Ozone 8. Then I level it to the LUF standard in RX6 again, and then RX6 is where I also create the MP3, the final MP3. And then to tag it, I use ID3 editor, which actually I was able to download and use on the Mac. And I think it recognized me because I didn't have to buy it again, or maybe it's free now. I don't know, but it's ID3 editor, and that's it. That's tagged. Then I upload to Libsyn. Boom! And I know I went way over time, Arik.
We'll let it pass. It's different when you're in the hot seat.
Barry, what'd you think of my speed round?
It's a mess.
Oh, I know.
Barry, what was it missing?
Saws, hammers, nails, beans, coffee, and biscuit, and a little piece of fat back.
That's
the speed
what I
round
thought.
would have been better with those things. I think he's right.
I think he's right too. That's why he was upset. Okay. So, all right, I got my list here and we're going to go over it, but I want to take a little sidetrack. This is going to be the little difference of the podcast engineering show. I just want to talk to you just a little bit about your background. You always talk in your intro, that you're a podcast editor, producer for private clients, and you've been doing that for a while. Is that your full-time job?
Yes, Fractal Recording is my company where I produce podcasts. That is my main full-time business. Yep.
How long were you doing it?
I've been doing Fractal since 2012, and I started back in New Jersey when I actually had a physical studio for 3 years. When I actually had my round table with the 4 mics, and I'd have clients come in and guests, and we used to produce shows right out of that studio.
So the next question, obviously, is that you've been doing that for 6 years. What did you do before that? How did you get into podcast editing?
Yeah, so I'll work backwards. So before that, I actually wrote a self-help book called Leap Beyond Your Limits because I'm all into like self-help and personal power and goal achieving and all that stuff. So that started about 4 years before that. So from 2008 to about 2012, I was writing the book and then doing seminars about goal setting and goal achieving. And then I wrote the book and then I was doing seminars on the book and I loved it. I'm a very positive person. I wish I could have done that for the rest of my life, but that wasn't taking off. And then that's when I was at a crossroads and I just said, I got to stop everything. And then I went on a retreat and I was thinking to myself for a few months, like, what am I going to do? Like, what should I do? If I can't be an author and a speaker and coaching people and doing seminars and make a living that way, what am I going to do? And it just, over months and months, it just kept coming back to audio. And then I thought, well, what can I do with audio? Because that was my background, right? Here's the question I asked myself. What is the one thing in this world that I am most qualified to do? And the answer was audio production, because I had been in New York and I had become an engineer and I'd worked on records. And I really made a lot of headway as an audio engineer. So that's the one thing in my life. I could walk into any room of audio engineers and I'm not the best one and I don't have the most album credits and all that, but I can hang with them. You know what I mean? Like I'm on some way I'm on par with them. So that's when I knew I had to do something with audio. And then I don't know, right around the same time I started listening to podcasts, and it literally just clicked one day that, like, dude, if I get into podcasting, it'd be like, you know, Derek Jeter going to play for some little league team or something, you know, like it's just, so that's why I got into podcasting.
But without the money.
With that, well, yeah, I don't have Derek Jeter money. No.
So what podcasts were the ones that you were listening to? I'm curious.
I actually found Cliff Ravenscraft first, I believe. And I was listening to him, and I think, you know, learning from him about the basics of, you know, an RSS feed and all that was really helpful. I mean, I needed that in the very beginning, right? I needed someone who knew the landscape of podcasting, and I knew I could just absorb it like quickly. Like as soon as he said things, I just absorbed it and it became part of me. So, yeah, it was definitely Cliff. Hey, Cliff.
And I think Cliff was on your show.
What?
Cliff was on your show.
He was way back when. I don't even know what session that was.
I think it was in your first several sessions, because I think that might be one of the reasons why I found you too. I listened to him and Ray Ortega, and then of course the standard podcast people, Daniel Lewis and whatnot,
Lewis.
All the people that you've had in your show. But yeah, I was searching for podcasting and came across them on your show, so I listened to the interviews. And what I've learned from listening to your show is that, you know, how you have it's a very clean sound. We'll get into that when we start talking about your signal chain, but it's not over processed. It's almost relaxing, if you understand what I mean, when you're listening to it. I mean, nothing seems, you know, too harsh. It's just very pleasant. And I think that obviously it comes from your background and some of the stuff that you're using. Just a couple more things on your history. So when you were growing up, when you were a wee lad, were you one of those musician guys? Did you play guitar and have long hair and get all the girls?
Yeah, so at the end of 8th grade and into high school is when I discovered Iron Maiden and Metallica, and then that's when I wanted to play the drums. And I didn't really have long hair, but yeah, I was a drummer, and I got drums, and I was in bands, and I loved it. And in high school is when I got my first 4-track recorder, because our band, we wanted to record a demo, and my friend lent me a 4-track recorder, and that's when I really got into the recording aspect of it. And that was back in the day with 4 tracks on a cassette tape. You had to like record something and then bounce it down to 2 tracks, and then you could record 2 more, and then you'd have to bounce that down to 2 tracks. And like the whole bouncing process was really delicate, because if your levels weren't good, you would get so much tape hiss, right? So that, like, immediately I understood audio engineering, that you got to just engineer it right so it comes out clean, right?
Yes. And I do you think after doing this now for so long that the people who produce their own podcast, they had some sort of background in, it doesn't have to be music, but in some sort of, you know, creative arts, you know, filmmaking, writing, whatever, that gives them that desire to actually sit here for hours in front of a screen, just working out and listening for the problems and editing it and then rushing to get it out so you make your deadline. I mean, I just don't see that people who have, say, like a business podcast that want to spend the time to do it, and they'll just rather pay someone to do it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely to like record your own audio and then edit your own audio, like you got to really like editing, and you got to like the craft of audio engineering, podcast engineering, because yeah, if you don't like it, then you'll do it like you'll try it the first time, and then you'll be like, oh my God, that took 9 hours for one episode. I'll never do that again. So really it's like almost like a personality thing, I think. I mean, I'm the type of person who I'm into the details, and I want everything to be correct. So
Barry, are you into the details?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I thought so. He seems very detail oriented. Well, if you're maintaining buildings, come on, you need to know what you're doing.
Oh, jeez.
All right, so let's get into your signal chain. So your mic. Now, were you always with the RE20?
No, I had an SM7B for a long time. I had an SM7B, and then
When you first started the show, you were using the SM7B, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I was. And then I kind of wanted to, that's back when I wanted to try an RE20. So what I did was, I think I bought one. I think I bought an RE20, but somehow I ended up at Podfest in Florida, and then Mark Johansson was talking about that the new RE20s aren't made like the old ones. And by new, meaning like probably 1990 might have been around the time of the cutoff, where any RE20 made after 1990 is different. So he kind of was like one by one, like buying vintage RE20s off of eBay and sort of like making sure they worked good and just, cleaning them up a little. So he had one, and I was like, so anyway, I purchased the one I'm using now from Mark Johansson, and yeah, it's great. And it's a slight difference between a vintage RE20 and a newer one, but there is a difference, and we can both hear it. And so I really like this mic, and I really like I need to be close to it too to get the fullness of my voice. Because my voice by nature is a little bit wimpy. Like if I'm about 12 inches away right now. So about 12 inches away, and I'm talking about the same volume, and now I'm back up on the mic, and you could tell when I'm up on the mic, it's just more full. It's just a full sounding with some body, with some beef.
And I mean, it definitely sounds like when I tried the RE20, it was I wouldn't say boxy, but it wasn't there wasn't as much presence in it. And your voice sounds like it has a lot of presence. Is that the difference between the previous generation RE20s and the newer ones?
A little bit, yeah. It's in the presence range. It's probably around 2 to 3K, somewhere in slight upper mid range, where there's just a little more clarity in these older mics. Yeah, and the high end, there's surprisingly a lot of high end in this mic too. Not a lot, but a good amount. Like the SM7B is a little bit darker than this mic. When I'm talking about like 10K and above, this one is very clear. So a lot of times I roll off some of the high end on this mic, believe it or not.
Now, one thing in your speed round you didn't mention, which I can see, is that you have a pop filter on it.
Yes, I got. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's a little pop filter.
Is that the BSW one?
It is. It's the BSW pop filter. Yep. Yeah. Little metal screen pop filter.
Now, from what I know of the RE20s, it has like almost like a built-in pop filter into it. So is it still plosives, or are you just doing?
Yeah, in my experience, any mic that says, "Ooh, we have some padding on the inside," so it really it cuts down plosives, and you really don't need a pop filter. No, in my experience, you always need another pop filter. Whether even the mic you're using is the Rode Broadcaster, right?
Right.
That one, people have said, "Oh no, you don't need a pop filter. Just talk right into it." Man, I tried talking right into that thing. Wow, holy plosives! It was crazy. I almost said Batman. Holy plosives, Batman. But anyway, it seems like every mic needs a good pop filter. And I actually have this pop filter. I have it really close to the mic too. I think they say you're supposed to have it like an inch away or an inch and a half. Mine is like, a half inch, maybe less. So, but the key is to talk straight into it. Because if I angle myself and talk into it, sometimes then the air can go around it, and then you actually hear some plosive. But anyway.
So whatever happened with the Broadcaster? You said you tried it, and then you disappeared with that. Well,
I got one that was faulty, or what do you call it? Not working properly. Not a good mic I got sent. I think it was damaged. And I think I've talked about this before. When the box it came in, it just looked funny. Right. And even the mount that goes on the stand that holds the mic, it wouldn't tighten. Like I kept tightening the screw thing, and it wouldn't tighten. And I was like, "Am I really that stupid that I can't tighten this mic thing?" And I was like, "No, it must be broken." And I'm like, "I hope it's broken, because or else I'll feel really stupid." Anyway, I ended up sending all that back, and then I got one from Rode to use at the microphone test drive booth at NAB. They sent me another Rode Broadcaster, and I tested that one, and it sounded better, and the clip tightened. So I actually right now have a good Rode Broadcaster in my studio here.
But you're not going to use it?
I've tried it a few times, and I want to try it a couple different ways. I mean, I tried it with the big foam windscreen that you can put on there. That's the one you're using, which is cool. And then I wanted to try like a different kind of pop filter or windscreen. So I got to like experiment with it. And that's like the problem in my life right now is like I'm so busy with production and the podcast engineering school that like spending 2 or 3 hours to just play with a mic is I'm having trouble finding time to do that. And it probably would take me that long to really go through what I want to go through with the mic and test it. Because you got to try stuff. You got to record it and then listen back. And, it takes a while. And I don't like to rush things. So,
what is it about people who make podcasts that they're always looking for the next greatest mic that they're going to use?
Well, because you always hear your own voice and you think it can sound better. So, it does take a little bit of wisdom or a little bit of maturity to sort of say, you know what, I've tried 2 or 3. This one sounds the best. I'm going to go with this one. But you know what? Other people are just crazy into gear like you and me. I mean, we just buy stuff. Like I don't know. I still buy stuff. I'm waiting. I'm still waiting for the Sennheiser MKH 416 shotgun mic to come on sale for $600 again. I'm going to definitely buy that.
Yes, for sure. I don't even know if I need it, but I always wanted it just because it costs $1,000.
So Barry, speaking of what Arik is going to need, Barry, what is Arik going to need in terms of his next mic?
You're going to need a couple of horses or a couple of mules.
What else?
Someday I'm going to get a picture of myself with 2 horses and 2 mules and me in the center. That'd be great. It'd be my album cover.
Now, the RE20 is going into the Neve Portico II, which I would say is probably next to your iMac Pro, is probably one of the more expensive things on your chain.
Yeah.
I think it's around $3,000. Is that simply for the preamp, or are you using it as a little bit of a channel strip?
Yeah, I'm using. I was using the EQ and compressor, and this little feature on the far right, which is like a little tone knob kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was using everything on it, but nowadays I'm only using a little bit of compression. So I'm not using any EQ, and I'm not using the little tone control. It's just the mic pre, and then I'm not even using any bass roll off or anything. I'm just literally using the mic pre and then a little bit of compression. Gentle. Like I think my ratio is 2.3 to 1. So it's gentle compression. And because it's such an expensive unit, it's very it's very, what's the word? You can't hear
delicate.
It's transparent. That's the word.
Transparent. Is this the rich man's DBX 286?
Yes, it is. But here's the thing. This is why I got it, because I wanted a channel strip for myself, and I wanted something good, right? I wanted a good mic pre, right? But here's the thing. Channel strips, like, I didn't know if I was ever going to get into music production again. So here's the thing. I used to have a different, actually, it wasn't a channel strip. It was a Red 3. It was a mic pre and compressor. It was same 2-rack space unit, but it was a mic pre and compressor. It was a Focusrite Red. And I used to bring it, when I was producing bands, I would bring that to the studio because inevitably that mic pre, again, it was about a $3,000 unit. The mic pre on my Focusrite Red 3 was better than any mic pre they had in the building. So when I was producing bands, I would bring that, and then we would record the lead vocals, and we'd record a lot of things through that because the mic pre was so much better. So when I wanted to get a channel strip, I was like, willing to make the investment, because if I ever have to go into a music studio, or if I have to record anything really, or voiceovers or anything, and I was like, you know what, let me just get a nice channel strip, and it, because gear like that, it's an investment. I mean, that thing's gonna work until I die. even if it's 50 years. So anyway, I'm willing to make that investment.
Now, with this is going into the MixPre, which is your audio interface. That provides, I think it's 96 or 76 dB of gain. Why would you need anything more from the Neve?
I don't. So, right, I bring my mic into the Neve, and then I use the MicPre in the Neve to bring it up to line level. And so I come out of the Neve at line level. So when I go into the MixPre, I switch that input to line input, not mic input. And then I actually put it at 0 dB. So when I'm coming into the MixPre-6, it's coming in. It's not adding or subtracting any level. It's just coming in at 0. And because it's a hot signal already, it doesn't need any more boost. So, and that's how I like to run my signal, especially from, when you run signal through cables between gear, I've always felt it's better to have a little hotter signal, meaning make sure the signal is nice and strong and healthy. Don't send a wimpy signal through a cable, because then it'll be more susceptible to RF noise and any other thing that'll sort of taint it, right? So if you're going through a mic cable, try and, except for a mic, obviously when you plug a mic in, you can't change the level of a microphone itself. But after you raise it up to line level, anywhere you route audio using cables, you should try and make it at a nice, strong, healthy level. So that'll help with the RF noise and the signal to noise in the cables themselves.
Okay, that's a helpful tip. The MixPre-6, I love it. It was by far one of the best investments I made this past year, or actually last year. And I'm using it to run the DBX in, and then when I do videos, I have a separate channel that I use just for the video, because I can take the DBX out, and it's very versatile. I got to tell you that. And then I took it to a trade show, and I did interviews there, and I had all the good stuff that I needed. I used to use the Zoom H6, which was pretty good. I like everyone else, I do feel that the gain was kind of noisy as you boosted it. I haven't found that at all with the MixPre, the Sound Devices. I think it's super clean, and the limiter on it, the analog limiter, I think is golden. Yeah. I think that's if you guys are on the fence about buying one of these, they have the smaller version, which is the MixPre 3. Doesn't have as many inputs, or it doesn't even have the TRS inputs. The reason I went with this is I have some TRS connections. I wanted that, and it also gave me like eight inputs, right? 6 inputs. It's right. 4 and then 2 virtual. So it's a great investment, and you and I are both using it as an audio interface. How do you have it set up for your interface?
Yeah, it's just very simply, I bring my mic into it, and I'm also bringing my iPad into it. So my mic is coming in channel 1, my iPad is coming in on channels 3 and 4, and that's it. I'm recording it on the MixPre-6, and I'm recording them in my computer as well. I didn't know, by the way, that the MixPre 3 it can't accept the 1/4-inch TRS cable. Oh,
no, only XLR and 3.5.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So yeah, that for me, that was a deal breaker. So I was willing to pay, I think, $300, $400 more.
Yeah,
just for those, just because of the way I was set up here.
And the limiters themselves, I just comment real quick. The limiters are great, and I've actually tried. Like I tried pushing them a little bit. I need to do a little more testing, because they're so transparent. It's hard to tell when it starts kicking in. Like, if I want to bring in my microphone a little hotter or boost it a little more, it's like, well, you can do that, but you got to be aware that at some point it's going to start limiting that. And you really don't want that, actually. I mean, in the recording process, you just want to capture it without really limiting it or compressing it too much or anything. You just want to capture it clean at a nice, strong level. So you want the strong level, but you don't want to crank the MixPre too much, so the limiter kicks in too much, and it's a little. I mess with it a little, but it's very transparent.
You like using that word, Barry? Do you think it's transparent?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I thought so. Now, what are you doing for your monitors? I don't think you mentioned what your monitors were.
Yeah, my monitors, I think it was about 2 years ago, I actually bought near-field monitors, which are small studio speakers, which are supposed to be very, very close to you on the desk. And so I bought a lot of people buy the Yamahas or the Rockets, or there's a bunch of popular
Mackie
ones, but I'm very picky with my near-field monitors, and I wanted real good monitors that were flat, meaning it doesn't accentuate the bass, and so I don't need like thumping bass in my podcast mixes, right? I need to hear the truth. So I actually got these Neumann KH 120As, which are a little expensive. I think they're I don't even know.
If it has the word Neumann, it's going to be expensive. That's just how it goes.
They're like $700 or $800 each. So
Yes.
The pair, it's not cheap, but they're nice and flat. They're nice and tight. They got a good bass response. And for me, when I'm in a studio, I need near field monitors that I can trust, period. If I don't have that, I'm actually not comfortable. So, and also with my monitors, I got it's called Soundworks, I think. I actually just mentioned this the last session. Anyway, I got the Soundworks, which kind of, you use a mic and you test your speakers with you move the mic throughout the room and it monitors your speakers, and then it actually applies an EQ to your speakers to make them like very, very flat, like flat. So then that you're hearing what you're hearing.
And for cans, are those the Sony?
Yeah, well these headphones I'm using right now are the they're the AKG K240s. But these are just regular studio headphones. They're not flattened. I actually have Sennheiser 650s, which are, I don't know, they cost $250. So, a little sort of expensive headphone, but really good. And also I got the Soundworks EQ flattening for them too. So when I use those, I can trust those headphones as well.
Now, when you're mixing, are you using headphones or are you using the speakers?
Speakers, almost 95% of the time. And actually, before I just rearranged my studio, I used to have my Sennheiser 650s right near me, so I would sometimes put them on. But literally, like in the last couple months, I'd say, I think my 650s I put them in the closet just as I was moving stuff around, and so I actually have to bring them out and start referencing them more, because part of what you need to do as an engineer is you need to know what you're hearing, obviously, but you need to stay fresh with your speakers and your headphones. So, you just stay, it's almost like you're staying on top of your game. Because if I didn't listen to those headphones for like a year and I took them out, I would kind of know what I'm hearing, but I wouldn't be 1,000% comfortable with it. So it's good to just stay with it.
So you think that the headphones are not as good to mix with than the monitors?
Well, using both is fine, but a lot of people say, "Oh, you could just mix on headphones," which is true, totally true. But like I said, for me, somehow
we're talking
the way
podcasts, we're talking spoken word. We're not, there's no big orchestrations and guitars and
true. But I still like hearing it come out of speakers. I still like hearing it in the room, and it's just yeah. But either way works, for sure.
Now, the MixPre is going into your most expensive piece of gear, which is the 2018 iMac Pro.
Yes.
Which is it 2018 or 2017? I think it's 2018.
2018 they came out, yeah.
Yeah.
Just in January.
And it's quite the impressive. I've been a Mac guy, well over 30 years. I'm not going to say how long because I'm going to date myself, but I started with the Apple IIs and whatnot, and it's one of these things. I live in that ecosystem, so I'm not going to switch at this point in my life to PC and stuff. I used to do tech, so I'm certified in Microsoft and whatnot, but I just hate that operating system. I like the Macs that are easy, and I think it's easier for creative people. Have you found that now that you've switched that it's just so easy to just put things together and it just works?
A little bit, yeah. Certainly, there seems to be a flow and a consistency on the Mac, and I had a Mac before that. It was a laptop that I used when I originally, like before I opened my podcast studio in Jersey. I bought a Mac laptop and Pro Tools, right? Because I was using a Mac laptop and Pro Tools, and anyway, so I've toyed with Mac for years. Even before that, I've kind of messed around, but yeah, I don't know. Switching over full time to a Mac is not bad. I mean, I've had trouble finding some programs for stuff I want to do, but I poke around and I ask my friends, and then I find something cool, and yeah, everything seems to work. And I'm real happy because over the last week or two is when I got my audio hijack and loopback to really work the way I wanted to. So now I'm like, it's like about a week ago, after getting everything straight, I went upstairs and I told my wife, I'm like, that's it. I got it. Now I was finally happy. It was like 3 months after I bought the iMac Pro that I got that happiness that like, wow, this is awesome.
Now, this is going to be the thing that really blows people's minds because I was looking at this stuff. I mean, I have the products. I just haven't implemented them because it reminds me of when I would do networks back in the day at companies, setting up networks and the nodes and whatnot, because you have all these, it's like a flow chart of your routings. And so let's bypass the Mac. You got an expensive Mac. It's got enough power to handle anything you're going to throw at it, including video. Okay, good. So let's get to Rogue Amoeba's Audio Hijack Pro, which has been around for, I think, like 15 years, and then now Loopback, which allows you almost total control over your system. So why did you go that route? Looks like you got rid of your mixers. You got rid of, half the cables that you've used, half the computers that you used. Now you got one computer, one audio device, and audio hijack. So what's the deal with this?
Yeah, so initially my podcast studio setup was, actually 5 laptops. One was my main recording laptop, and I had 4 satellite laptops, and I would literally bring in guests through the internet over, like I'd have one laptop with one Skype account, second laptop with a second Skype account, and I'd bring everybody in separately into my mixer so I could record them separately, locally. So that's what I was doing forever until, literally probably a month ago or 2 weeks ago. And I like that. I like having the control. I like maybe one computer, someone comes in using Zencastr, or maybe 2 people are on Zencastr, but someone needs to come on a phone call on Skype, so I bring them in separately. Well, here's the thing, though. Without several computers, and I'm talking about like Windows now, Windows computer, on one Windows computer, I can't bring in several people like that. I can only use one program on one computer. So the game changer was that on Mac with audio hijack and specifically Loopback is the one that actually routes everything. On one machine, I can actually have 3 or 4 programs running, and they can all be recorded on separate tracks, and they can all hear each other. And I can do all that routing in the box. So it's almost like this iMac Pro replaced my 4 computers and my Mackie mixer. So you have different, it's almost like a chain for each type of setups. Like this type of call right now, you have a specific chain that you use in audio hijack, and then you use loopback to push the sound where you want it to go. You take control of where the sound is going to go. Right. So in general, let's just say audio hijack in general is just a recorder. You can record different sources of audio, but audio hijack is pretty much just a recorder. And you could do routing. You can do some processing to it as well. Like you can put a compressor on something, or you can raise the volume, or there's a lot of effects you can use, but basically you're taking an input and you're recording it. So that's what audio hijack is. It's not a DAW. You can't mix on it. You can't open up a wave on it and do editing. Nothing like that. It's just literally audio capture. Loopback is the one where you can route things. So for instance, right now we're connected on Squadcast, and I'm connected through the Chrome browser. So on my computer through the Chrome browser application, your voice is coming through. And my voice and Barry's voice are going to you, right?
Right.
Right. So now let's say we wanted to have another guest. Let's say I open Skype. And now let's say we get Ralph M. Rivera on Skype. Well, now in Audio Hijack, I can say, okay, record Skype. And with Loopback, I can take Ralph's audio and feed it to Chrome, which goes to you. And I can take the Chrome audio, which is you, and feed it to Skype, which is Ralph. And that's only 2 programs. That's Chrome and Skype. What if I want to open FaceTime? What if one of my guests has FaceTime and we can get a call? What if someone's on Zoom? What if through Firefox I can run, let's say, Ringr through Firefox? So I can have Zencastr on Chrome, Ringr on Firefox, Skype, FaceTime, and what else? Well, Safari you can't do anything with, by the way. Safari is just a dud when it comes to any audio.
I thought they were going to open that API up to, they're not.
I don't know. It's whatever. Just I avoid Safari. And so, but yeah, so then I can have all those apps recording separately and I'm routing everyone's audio to where it needs to be without each person hearing themselves like feedback, you know? So what the podcast people might say is I'm feeding a mix minus to every single guest.
Okay.
Using Loopback.
Yes. And setting up a mix minus, which if you've never done, is it's a pain in the butt. Once you get it, it's you understand it conceptually, and then you can keep doing it. But now with this program, it's easy to do.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to do. I mean, I'm using it like someday, one of these days, once I'm fully set up, which I kind of am, but when I have time, I probably make a video of how I'm using Audio Hijack and Loopback.
You should.
And yeah, because I got some virtual instruments and routing things, and it's pretty cool. And it's really not that hard. And by the way, if you're wondering what a mix minus really is, a simple way to think of it is that when I'm on a podcast, I need to hear everybody else, but I don't want to hear myself. I can hear myself when I'm talking here. So same with you, Arik. You need to hear everybody, but not yourself, especially not yourself coming through the internet to me and then me sending your voice back so it arrives to you about a second after you spoke the word. And so you're hearing this feedback. You're hearing yourself on a delay. That's what a mix minus fixes or avoids.
No, what I heard about Loopback, which really got me interested in it, is that I can process my voice. So I can take my voice coming from the mic to the DBX to the MixPre into my computer, run, my routine that I put through Audition on that signal, and then send that to like OBS or Wirecast or something else. So I already have my good voice.
Yeah.
When I go onto like Facebook Live or whatnot. So that to me sounds really exciting, as opposed to just having crappy audio, because at the end of the day, audio is everything.
Yeah. So instead of just sending your raw mic signal to your wherever, Wirecast or YouTube, you're actually able to process your voice, compress it a little, tweak the EQ, make it real nicey nice, and then send it out. That's awesome.
And then people are going to think, "Wow, that sounds so good. What mic is that?"
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's what people do. I don't think people know a lot about this, and they're getting that process signal out, and everyone thinks that they just have amazing voices or amazing mics. They probably do, but like Mike Russell, I love listening to Mike Russell. I listen to him all day long. That guy's voice is just so amazing.
Yeah,
him and Mike Delgadio.
Oh my God.
Yeah, great voices.
Hey, I got to ask Barry a question.
Yeah.
Barry, what do you think? Barry, what do you think when you hear my voice without all the processing on it?
That's frightening.
Okay.
Okay, and now we're gonna speed through some of the speed round. Squadcast, I like this. I've used pretty much every program, and they all have issues so far. I'm sure this does too, but it sounds clean. It sounds really clean. Zencastr, it works, but you're hearing a lot of artifacting sometimes, like especially if you and I talk at the same time, it compresses that signal or it has trouble with it. But this is the cleanest I've ever heard anything.
Yeah, so for one reason it can be a little cleaner is, by the way, Zencastr is pretty clean. The only thing is for the last few months, or maybe even almost all of 2018 so far, Zencastr's been having trouble with clicks and stuff, and it's just been a little trouble. Some of that was fixed with the last major Chrome update, but I'm still getting some artifacts and clicks and pops. Squadcast might seem cleaner because it's actually just recording WAV files locally. It's not actually trying to upload your MP3 in the background right now. So right now it's just your live voice going through the internet. When we're done, apparently, then it uploads all of our WAV files. So it doesn't take up the bandwidth while we're recording. And the other thing is Zencastr, well, let me say, on Squadcast, they do the ducking thing. When you and I talk at the same time, it ducks one of our voices. It like brings it down, almost mutes it, because that's how normally voice over IP works with more than one person talking, and it does that to avoid feedback. But on Zencastr, what's cool about Zencastr is you can turn that off or on. You can have it do the ducking thing, or you can turn it off, and I always use it off because when it's off, there's no ducking thing. So even if you and I talk at the same time, it's still recording each of us perfectly. Whereas Squadcast, the VoIP signal gets ducked. Oh, no, it does show up in the recording, too. That ducking thing, even though the recording is only local right now, that ducking thing does show up in the local recording. And that, like, for me, that's almost close to a deal breaker. I mean, in fact, you might say it is a deal breaker because for my production, for my business, I'm still using Zencastr every day. So.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna have to look into that. But yeah, I've noticed, and I've had to run it through RX6, the clicking noises, and I've been trying to figure out where that's coming from. And obviously, it's Zencastr. If you're saying that, I've had some other issues with them too, with files just not loading at all after we finished recording. And I had 2 podcasts that I completely lost. That luckily, the MixPre records people individually. So I was able to do that. Otherwise, I would have been really upset, really, really upset.
Yeah.
And they've been really good about it. They credited me. Josh, I guess that's his name. He was very good and responsive. The one thing I really want from them is to have video. Once they do that, they'll beat the crap out of Skype, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's in the works. That's what I've heard.
That's why I think we talked about that last time, so we're still waiting for it. And I know Skype is now trying to appeal to podcasters. I just don't know if that'll ever work.
Yeah, that big announcement by Skype that, it integrates into your video software or something, and you can have different people. It records everyone separately. But yeah, it still records them separately at a really crappy quality.
Right. Nobody's going to want that.
Yeah, it's okay.
Believe it or not, I've used Zoom as a backup. Like if Zencastr just isn't working for either of us, I'll go to Zoom and it never fails. So that's my backup plan. Maybe I'll try Squadcast. All right, so let's get into your plugins. You're using you get the raw audio and then you treat it with RX6 Advanced. You said you use the dehum, the declicker.
Yeah, I mean, I use really whatever I need. I'm actually going to open it on my machine right now and look at it. So normally, and it's cleanup. It's the cleanup phase. That's how I think of it.
Before you start doing any editing or any mixing, you're going to clean it up.
Yeah, I'm cleaning it up because a lot of times there's there's a lot of low rumble you can just take out, you can just delete, like I said before, under about 30 hertz. You can use the declick. The declip, like if you ever get a recording that someone recorded it way too hot and it's literally clipping, I will declip it. It'll actually restores those peaks, which is awesome. It does have a de-esser. I usually don't use the de-esser in RX6. I use a de-esser when I'm mixing in my DAW because that's something you got to mix. Like mixing is something where it's almost like you're cooking and you need a little of this, a little of that. And then sometimes when you add a little bit of X and then you add a little bit of Y, then you realize that, I added too much X. So then you got to remove some of the X. And then, I want more Y. And but Z, now I need more. So like mixing is like balancing and you got to be able to do it all together, like EQ, compress, DS. So yeah, RX6, I also do the dehum if it needs it. I do the deplosive a lot. Plosives are that's something you can do when you're just cleaning up the tracks, is just take out the plosives if there are any. The de-reverb I also like. If someone's recording in a really reverby room, you can de-reverb. You can't go overboard with that, or else it sort of destroys the voice. It's like any effect. You can use it, but if you use too much, then it ends up being worse. And then the other thing is the mouth declick. I will use that if someone's really clicking on their mouth. In fact, I have a client who just bought these headsets, and when she goes on site, she's recording guests, and they're both wearing headsets. And when a microphone is literally an inch from your mouth, like, it tends to pick up more of your mouth noises. So I the mouth declick is a savior there. It's really pretty cool. And then of course the voice denoise, which is basically noise reduction. I also, I actually tweak the loudness. So if a track is too loud or too low, I usually set the loudness when in the cleanup phase to about, I set it to minus 23 LUFS. And yeah, that's about it. Sometimes I'll do EQ if really if the EQ is really whacked out, like if there's just so much low end, it's just insanity. I will in the cleanup phase in RX6, I will EQ some of that low end. So that's
why would you do it in RX6 as opposed to doing it in your DAW?
Like I said, it's only in extreme cases, and it's only because it's so like here's the thing. If there was so much low end, right? If I make the loudness to minus 23 LUFS, it's gonna and then in my DAW, if I EQ out a lot of that low end, the overall level is gonna seem much lower. So perceptually, that's why in RX6, when I remove, if there's way too much low end, I'll remove some of it. I won't remove like all of it. I won't really do any surgical EQing. I'll just remove a bunch of low end just to make it sort of an even EQ. And then when I save it at minus 23 LUFS, then it's really more of a standard minus 23 where perceptually it's correct. So then when I bring it into mix, it matches up with the other tracks that are minus 23.
Okay, and you're using Reaper. You're like one of the 5 people in the world that uses Reaper. And why Reaper over Audition? And, because a lot of the things I've learned, so I was a Logic 10 guy for the 2 times that you had me on your podcast. I was using Logic 10. The only reason I was using Logic 10 was that I was an Apple guy. I just figured the entry level was GarageBand, the professional level was Logic, just like, I went from iMovie to Final Cut Pro for all the video stuff that I do. So I figured I'd use it. But for podcast and just vocal stuff, I really am impressed with Adobe Audition. I think it does so much, and it's so much easier to put together a podcast. And, when things aren't working in the multitrack, I can switch over the waveform, I tweak it. It's automatically fixing it in the multitrack at the same time. And I can run, like RX6 plugins, like the deverb, or however they call it, de-reverb.
Yep.
The declick and the declip all are separate, and I can run them in Audition.
Right.
Does Reaper allow you to do that?
No. Reaper's much more stripped down. It doesn't have a stereo editor like Audition. Audition is clearly a superior application than Reaper. And the only reason I don't use Audition, or really, well, let's stick with Audition. I don't like the fact that well, first of all, I thought until recently that I had to buy the Photoshop and the whole Adobe suite and pay $80 a month, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. But then someone told me you can pay, was it $20 a month for Audition?
You can buy individual, yeah.
Yeah. So, but even that, it's like, really, $20 a month? Like I could, I just like buying software once and using it. But so anyway, what I'm saying is that Audition is it's definitely better than Reaper. I don't use Reaper for anything really, except almost as like a shell. So I don't use any effects in Reaper at all. I use all third-party plugins, and I don't do any funny. I fade in and out some clips. I fade in the beginning of some clips and out, and I really don't do much with Reaper itself. So because my workflow is, I will, in my DAW, my multi-track DAW, I will mix the episode, like with the music and the voices and whatever. Then after that, I'll open up the mix, whether it's mono or stereo. I'll open that up in a detailed editor. And right now, like I said, I'm using TwistedWave. I was using SoundForge Pro on my PC, and that's where I do my detailed editing, like clipping out little things or tightening up spaces or removing ums and all that. So again, it's kind of like, I think a lot of the way I produce podcasts is really based on how you produce music.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah,
because it seems like you're doing more work. In my layman's basic way of looking at it, I think like for me, Audition, I can put it all together and I don't have to do anything else after it. I can edit the ums and everything, and if I need to, if there's one section that it spikes so much on that waveform, I can just reduce that waveform right there, and it fixes it. I don't have to send it or do anything, and I can even do the loudness on Audition has some pretty strong plugins. I still like some of the ones I bought just because I bought them.
Yeah,
but you watch some of Mike Russell's stuff, and I mean, I learned so much about Audition.
Yeah, look, I should probably be using Audition because it is markedly better than Reaper, I'm sure. But I mean, literally, I just bring in tracks and apply my effects chains, and then I put usually I put Ozone 8 on the master bus and do my mastering right there too. And that's it. I'm just mixing. I'm doing levels, I'm doing EQ, and I just get it right. And I don't know. That works for me for now.
I'm looking at TwistedWave. How much does TwistedWave cost?
I think it's like $60 or $80 or something. It's a one-time thing. And again, I love it. It's so responsive and quick. I really like it, but you just can't play it back at faster than you can only play back at normal speed. Wow. And I emailed them too, and they're like, no, sorry. And then, of course, they said, well, you can, drag the cursor faster than one-time speed. And I'm like, no, you don't understand what I want to do.
Barry, what did you think of that?
There's no activity, no giggle, no nothing.
That didn't make sense. But that's one of my favorite Barry clips in the world. Same with Barry. What do you think? What do you think about Ralph M. Rivera and that picture of himself that he shared on Instagram? What did it look like to you, Barry?
Something from out of ancient times. Big mouth, lot of teeth.
Oh, classic.
So we're going to talk about one of the most amazing plugins that I have yet to buy, which I'm afraid to because I think I'll get lost in it, and that's the Waves Sheps Omni. That's got to be unbelievable. You'd probably have to put like a master class on how to even use that.
Well, it's awesome, and it's a channel strip basically. So it has everything. You can do mic pre-distortion, you can do all EQ, including filters. You can do it has 2 de-essers in it, which is awesome because people with nasty sibilants, you almost always need 2 de-essers, and that's actually tricky how to actually put 2 de-essers on one voice and have it sound good because it's really easy to de-ess too much. But anyway, it has a compressor. It has 3 different types of compressors in it, and it has obviously a limiter as the last step if you want it. And it does, gating as well. I mean, it literally does everything you would need all in one plugin. And it's just, I like it. And I'm getting used to it. And it sounds really good too. I still, like I said, I like some of my old individual plugins from Waves that I was using on my old machine. But the Sheps Omni Channel is really cool. And it sometimes, I think on sale it was $49, which is well worth it.
Yeah, right now it's $69 if people are interested.
Yeah.
But then you're also using the SSL G.
Yeah, that one I don't actually use very much. I only use it for a little extra compression. Like if I want to use 2 compressors instead of 1, I'll put on the SSL G compressor. And the other thing is filters. Sometimes I will use like roll off some of the low end or the high end in the SSL, and I use the SSL first in the chain, and then from the SSL it goes to the Sheps Omni Channel. So. Yeah.
I was thinking, Mike Russell sells his podcast presets for Audition. You should do something for Reaper since you're in that, and probably, like I said, one of the few people I've ever heard that use it. I know that there's a following. I did a search online. A lot of people do use it, but you should write something for them, because I guess it's kind of open source. You could probably sell the Chris Kern or fractal recording setup.
Yeah, I think one other person has mentioned that before, and I mean, it's interesting. It sounds interesting. But it also sounds like one of those things that would be awesome to do, but like I'll literally never get around to it. Like I won't. I mean, Barry, do you think I'll ever get around to that?
190%.
So dumb.
See, he's all behind it. And we're wrapping it up. Like you said, you master it in Ozone. Which preset are you using, or are you making your own?
Yeah, I make my own, and I use it's just the multiband compressor, and it's the limiter, and it's the exciter, the multiband exciter. I do a little advanced Jedi stuff at the very end.
That's cool. And again, that something that you could put out there. People like your show. If you put together like a little cheat sheet, one of these things for send me your email and here's the 5 steps that I use to master my podcast with, or whatever. Right. But anyways, okay.
Speaking of Ozone 8, Barry, what is your what do you like to accentuate using Ozone 8?
The bottom.
Yes. Who doesn't like the bottom?
Oh,
I don't want to know where that clip came from.
Yeah.
All right, Barry's getting silly. All right, then you throw it back into RX if you need to level it some more, and then
actually, I always throw. Last step is always RX6, and what I started doing now is I'll actually phase correct it first. And then I'll level it to the left standard in RX6. So whether it's mono or stereo, I do that.
Okay, now here's going to be an interesting question for you, considering what your background is and what you do for a living. How much of this do you think the average podcaster should do?
Yeah, probably not much of it, actually. I mean, you can, if you really want to get a stripped down production, the best way is always to record it properly the first time. Meaning get decent equipment, have good mic technique, don't be in a noisy room. I mean, if you really record something properly, you don't have to do much to it afterwards, probably, I mean, you could, but even if you didn't, it would still be good. So,
right. Some people have good podcasts with, millions of followers, and they sound like actual crap.
Yeah.
And I get that people are there for the content. For me personally, I just have a hard time in 2018 if I hear a podcast that's, sounds like it was on Blog Talk Radio, it sounds worse than AM radio, or they're calling in. I mean, there's Zencastr. There's a million of these, not a million. There's like 3 or 4. But there are different ways to get people on other than bringing them in on a phone call. And I know people are busy, but there's Ringr. I mean, Ringer's not the best. I use it sometimes in a pinch, but I think that you can put a little bit more effort into your sound, and I think people appreciate that, because we're going right into people's ears with these headphones, these ear pods, everybody's got something in their ear. I know that sounds really weird, but
okay, terrific.
But to not put that effort in. But I guess if you're a big celebrity, you can afford to not to do anything.
I guess so. Well, but two things. Number one, because I have a business and I provide production services, and because anyone who hosts a podcast, they want to connect with guests, you never know what the guest is going to sound like. They could sound great, or they could sound like absolute rubbish. So as a podcast producer, I need to be able to take any piece of garbage audio and make it, real good, at least good. Maybe not really good, but at least good, at least audible. And you know what I mean? Like, I need to do the best I can with it. That's why I have all the tools and all the tricks and everything like that. And the other thing is, it's a tweet I just shared. And probably this link has been shared in the podcasting space over the past week or so, but there's an article titled "Bad Audio Can Hurt a Scientist's Credibility," because they did some testing and they played different scientists to different people, and apparently the scientists with better audio quality, they came off as better scientists. And it's like, well, duh. It's like, if you sound like absolute rubbish, I mean, who's going to take you really seriously if you can't even, you know what I mean? Like you said, it's 2018. It's not like, it's not hard to sound good. And so I don't know. Good audio goes a long way. Really does.
It is, especially if you want to deliver the truth, as you put it. It's a quick aside. My show is strictly interviews, and kind of like your show. And it's funny when I interview people who actually have other podcasts, and then we're doing a double ender, but they send me the stereo mix of me and I had to fix that one. I'm like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
No, thanks, guys. You screwed me over because this is like at the last minute. But okay, this is a good segue to get into what your baby is, and that's Podcast Engineering School. What is it, and how did that come about?
Well, the school became my main focus about a year and a half ago. So I was doing fractal recording for many years, producing podcasts, and then I there's really no one teaching like advanced production techniques to podcasters. There's not. There's like courses like Cliff's A to Z course, and there's other courses, and it's like really, really basic, and like they'll tell you what equipment to get and how to set it up. Like they don't actually teach you any knowledge. It's some knowledge, but it's mostly, here's how you do that. Just do that, and that's it. And Podcast Engineering School is not for podcasters. It's actually for podcast producers. It's for people who want to really learn how to produce podcasts at a professional level. And mostly the students, they want to make a career out of it. I mean, you could charge good money producing podcasts if you're professional and you produce a good product. And if you're confident in yourself, the confidence is the biggest thing. So, yeah, we've done we're in our fourth semester right now. About 30 people have graduated so far, and everybody just loves it. I mean, loves it. Like, it's insane. People just get all lit up. They can't, we do the classes on Tuesday evenings, and some of these people, they can't go to sleep for like 4 hours because everything's in their mind, how they want to do the production and equipment they want to get and everything. It's just great, man. It's just great, and I love it. And I'm hoping to grow the school and to get some younger people in, like younger people who were like me, 19 years old, did 1 year of college, and that's it. I don't want to go to college anymore. So what was I going to do? I got into the music business. So the school's just awesome. I'm having trouble marketing it. So I'm not a great marketer, right? And I've asked people for help, and some people have given me help. And of course, there's people who, if I pay them $50,000, they'll help me with my marketing, but I don't have $50,000. And so it's a fun ride though. This whole podcasting thing is great, and I love it. Can you tell?
Yes. So what can people expect from the engineering school? How is it? It's like how many weeks? It's just one night, right?
Well, it's 7 classes over 7 weeks, or 7 or 8 weeks. We usually take 1 week off, but yeah, they're 2-hour classes, and it's really, we do it on Zoom, so it's video and audio, and I share my screen, I present slides, I open up my software, I show things, and show audio things, and and then each student also gets an hour consultation before we even start the course with me, and an hour consultation after the course with me. And there's all kinds of bonus videos where I recorded myself producing actual episodes. So, for instance, going into RX6 and really just getting deep into tweaking stuff and fixing stuff, and in Ozone and mastering, like all the plugins. I go over every plugin I use in depth. And so there's a lot of bonus videos as well. And then, of course, we have our Slack group, which is awesome because we all hang out in Slack, and current students and all the alumni is there. So it's a really awesome Slack group. It's And then, you're connected, you're an alumni and you're in a Slack group for life. So it's like for the next 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, you're part of the community. And if you ever have questions, you put it in Slack and me and the rest of the community will help you. And it's great.
How many have gone on to become podcast engineers or producers?
Well, most of them are already producing their own show or producing a couple for other people. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of them are. I mean, I've had some young folks in who aren't ready to start on their career. I had a 14-year-old girl come through the course and also a 15-year-old boy. So they're just, they're basically producing podcasts for their parents, right? Usually it's the parent has a show and they want the kid to learn how to edit. So they send them to my school and they just love it. And, they pick it up really quick. So yeah, it's it's not like other, John Buchanan is, I don't know if you might have heard of John, but hey, John, he's taking the course right now and it's blowing his mind. Every single class, he's like, oh my God, he's been producing podcasts for years and he just mind blown all over the place. And so that's what I love because that's taking a guy who has a company that produces podcasts for other people and he's good at it and he makes a living. But yet, what I can teach him from all my experience can just take him like 27 levels up. And guess what he's going to do? He's going to start raising his prices. You know why? Because he can. He's a professional now, and he's going to make a lot more money, man.
Well, how much does it cost for the school?
Full price is about $3,000. And normally I have like a early bird special. And right now I think the special is around $1,975 or something. It's just under $2,000 right now. Pretty soon it'll just go up to full price, like about a month before we actually do it. We start the next one on June 26th, so we still have some time.
Well, if you're sitting on the fence, people, now would be the time. Not, of course, we want Chris to make all the money he can, but if money is tight, I would sign up now for sure. So, Chris, I want to wrap this up with just a couple of things here. I hate to say it, but I've stolen so much of your material and knowledge, awesome. The free way, taking the free milk and learned so much about podcasting or actually podcast engineering. But what quick tips could you give? I mean, besides listening and people, if you are into making your own show or making other people's show and you're just trying to figure it out, there's some good YouTube channels, but in terms of podcast, I don't think there's anyone out here that is even remotely close to the production aspect of podcasting. But what tips could you give somebody from, obviously you kind of said something about keeping it, on the recording side, making sure everything's good. But what quick tips could you give somebody?
Yeah, recording it right in the first place, that's like audio engineering, 101. That's like the golden rule of engineering. So a couple things I would say are important are, one is that when you have more than one voice, like if you have an interview, you should really try to mix those two voices so they're about the same volume. And it sounds so simple. It's not always that simple. Even if you use a service like Auphonic and you can actually process each voice to the same LUFS level, they might be real close. They might even be pretty much the same, but you still have to listen, because that's one of the pet peeves of listeners to podcasts is that maybe the host's voice is really loud and the guest's voice is really low and wimpy. So leveling those voices is like a must. The other thing is when you mix a voice over, let's say, intro music. Let's say at the beginning of a show, there's intro music, and then the host comes in and says, hey, welcome to the show. Like, putting the music at the right level and putting the host's voice at the right level is important. You don't want the music to be way too loud, but you don't want the music to be way too soft. So you got to mix it in there nice. So the music is there, but you could still hear the host and all that. I mean, that's another mistake that tons of people make with podcasts. Like the music is like really loud, and then like this little wimpy voice comes in really low, and it's crazy. The other thing is editing. It's just tightening up when you're editing. Naturalness is one of the things you want to go for as a professional. You want things to sound natural. You don't want to cut off, edit someone right in the middle of a word, because that doesn't sound natural. So you can tighten things up. You can cut out, dead space between people speaking, but you got to be careful of cutting people's breaths in half. When people take an in-breath, like you don't want to edit out half of that breath. It'll just sound unnatural. It'll be like, what happened? That was weird. So the naturalness and tightening up in the edit will go a long way. And also tightening up in terms of making it snappy. There's one thing with podcasts is like very annoying when someone on a podcast is like, and so the other day I was you can't have that in a podcast. I mean, and it's amazing how many people just leave that stuff in there. I mean, if you're hiring a podcast editor, that kind of thing should never make it to the final show. But if you're doing it yourself, I mean, you got to tighten up these places where it just drags. I mean, if you drag for 10 seconds, it could turn off a listener and they'll just literally turn off your show. Just be like, I can't do it. It's like, think about when you go to a YouTube video. Like, you want to figure out how to, like I just did, the water spigot on the back of my house is leaking water, and I wanted to figure out how to fix it. So I went to YouTube, and let's say I clicked on a video, and they just start going, yeah, well, if there's a leak, you can, if there's a leak, I would turn off that video right there. I would not watch that video. That is painful. So anyway, I don't want to make too much of that, but it is that important. So those are a couple quick things.
Well, that's awesome. And, this has been a masterclass in production. Hopefully people listen to this often and listen to Chris's show often and subscribe and do all the good things. Write a review. I've heard those are important. And if you can, come by the Firearms Nation podcast and stop by, or see me on social media and tell me how much you enjoyed hearing Chris talk. He talks all the time, but we got some insight, and I really appreciate the opportunity to interview you, Chris, because like I said, I've learned so much from you, and I hope other people can continue to elevate our podcast production simply from hanging out with Fractal Recording and Chris Curran.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Arik, and it's awesome. Yeah, your Firearms Nation podcast is awesome. Everyone should go check that out if you're into firearms, obviously. And yeah, and you're also, by the way, thank you for telling me, and I have a couple other things to mention, so don't tune out yet. When I drove out to Vegas for NAB, I was actually, for part of the trip, I was wearing those the Bose noise-canceling headphones, and I tweeted, or I mentioned that in a session, and you sent me a nice email and said, Chris, come on, man, like, because you're actually a law enforcement officer, and I know
yes, I
people
am.
probably know that. So, but you told me, yeah, that's really, not cool. So, but thank you for that. And you were previously on this show on session 54 and then session 82. So if people want to hear all about you and your signal chain and all your production, go check out sessions. Did I say episodes? Sessions 54 and 82. And by the way, I'm not sure, Arik, but you may now be tied with Ralph M. Rivera for the amount of appearances on this show. You're definitely in the lead, but you might be tied with Ralph. So,
well, I got to tell you, if you go back and listen to that first episode, because I did that today, it's amazing. I don't even know. It had to be like at least over a year ago.
Yeah.
How much knowledge I've got. No, that's bad English. How much knowledge I've acquired in podcasting. And like I said, I've learned so much of it from you. And, we've talked offline too. But this show has been a great show. And thanks for having me on again.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. And thank you for interviewing me. This was a great idea. And I hope it was good. I hope it shared some good info. But also, I want to ask Barry one last question about, because Barry recently overheard Ralph and his wife talking. It was online, but Ralph overheard a conversation. So, Ralph, when you overheard the conversation between Ralph M. Rivera and his wife, Carolyn, what did you hear?
And they were cussing up a storm. Profanities left, profanities right.
Really? Anything else?
Every second word was a F word.
I love that one. Barry. All right. Well, you know the drill. Arik, this was awesome, man. I mean, I hope it came off well. But anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you, Arik Levy, for hosting this show. And go check out Firearms Nation Podcast and the YouTube channel as well. Firearms Nation YouTube channel. So,
yes, and Chris, please continue to sound great.
Oh, you're a little early. Sound great.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh, forget it.
Forget it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You walk away from me well, and you can't play that part so well. Why do you play it out on me now? You like to lose control well. It's quite a feeling, isn't it? They're floating, risking time now. You tell me that you found something better. How should I respond to that? It's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. What do you want me to say? It's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. You react some everything. You change your attitude well. You say I just don't get it now. You say your eyes so far away now. You gave up on me well. So change your game and give away. You say I wouldn't understand now. You tell me that you found something better. How should I respond to that? Oh yeah, I say now it's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. What do you want me to say? It's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. You react so angry. I want you to know you will never always be true. I've gone over all we've been through. Doesn't seem that long a time now. Things we did still hold that meaning. It doesn't mean it's still the same. You're pushing me away. You work your theories now where you're getting worked up on you now. You work your